Hello class, for today's lesson is about simplifying numerical expressions using integers and the order of operations, or GEMDAS. And here are the learning targets. I can apply the correct order of operations, or GEMDAS, to simplified numerical expressions involving integers. And I can show discipline and accuracy when following mathematical rules to get the correct answer. And here is the order of operations, or GEMDAS. G stands for grouping symbols. Grouping symbols, which includes parentheses and brackets. Okay, so again, this is parentheses, and this one here are brackets. Next, for E stands for exponents. Okay, so powers, squares, and others. And here for MD, we have multiplication, and division, from left to right. And last one, we have addition and subtraction, also from left to right. And take note that GEMDAS does not mean that you always do multiplication before division. Same thing with addition and subtraction. Again, it's just based on left to right basis. So multiplication and division has the same power unless it's from left to right, so as with addition and subtraction. And again, here's for GEMDAS. Other thing for GEMDAS, in my curriculum before, we don't actually call this GEMDAS, but instead we call this PEMDAS. We used P, which stands for parentheses. Now let's have our first example. We have here 6 plus 3 times 2. Again, going back with GEMDAS. So our operations here are addition and multiplication. So with this, we have multiplication and addition. So obviously, multiplication goes first before addition. So our first line of step here would be 3 times 2 before adding 6. So reserve 6 for now, then the addition operation, and 3 times 2 is 6. That's why we get 6 as well. And here it is the final step, or the simplified form before the final answer. So 6 plus 6 is 12. Next, let's have 8 plus 2, but in a parenthesis, times 3. Although you can see here that the operation being used is addition, and also we have multiplication, so probably you might be thinking that times 3 here should go first, but remember that we have the G, which is grouping, so this one goes first. So the operation or any number inside a parenthesis or bracket should go first. So with this, let me just erase. Oops. So with this, we need to have or operate or evaluate 8 and 2 first. So 8 plus 2 is 10, and that's the time we're gonna multiply 10 and 3. So 10 times 3 is 30. Next example, we have here negative 4 plus 6 times negative 2. Same thing with what we had earlier with GEMDAS. Multiplication goes first before addition. So with this one, let's just copy negative 4 and the addition operation. And we have here 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. So just like what we had in adding and subtracting integers, since we're adding both negative signs here, negative 4 and negative 12, that means the result is also negative. And all we need to do is to add the base numbers, the 4 and 12, so we get 16. So as a result, we have negative 16 as the answer. Next, let's have this one. Negative 8 plus 3 times negative 2. So just like with this one from GEMDAS, the G is grouping, so we need to operate what is inside the grouped the numbers inside a parenthesis. So we have here negative 8 plus 3. Again, based on this, the bigger number is negative over the positive. That means the result would be negative. And remember the big minus small based on the base numbers. So we have here 8 minus 3, so the answer is 5. So that's why we have negative 8 plus 3, we will get negative 5 times negative 2. Let me erase this one first. So here, we have negative times negative, so our answer would be positive. And of course, just multiply the base numbers. We have 5 and 2, so 5 times 2 is 10. So positive 10 is our answer. Next, let's try this one. We have here negative 3 squared plus 4 times 2. Now, as you can see here, when we have a square, so see there's a square here, it only means that you're going to multiply the number twice. So if you have here negative 3 times negative 3, again, we need two negative 3 here because, again, it is squared. So that means if you are given negative 3 cubed, that means this is expanded into negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Anyway, that's not the case here, so let's just go back to the negative 3 squared. And please take note that the negative symbol here is inside the parentheses. That's why it is part of the one also being multiplied. So anyway, I'm gonna give another example to this one regarding the squaring stuff and the symbols. Anyway, so we have here negative times negative is positive. So that means our answer is positive. And 3 times 3 is 9, so positive 9. So that means negative 3 squared, in which the negative symbol is also inside, is positive 9. Plus 4 times 2. This one, we have here a positive, an addition operation and a multiplication operation. So of course, you need to go with multiplication first. So 4 times 2 is 8. So you write 9 plus 8, and 9 plus 8 is 17. Now, before I proceed to other stuff or examples regarding GEMDAS, let me just clarify with this one. If you are dealing with powers, and for today I'm just gonna have square. So just say 2. So you read this as 2 squared. So this is multiplied as 2 times 2. You multiply it by itself twice, so that's why we get 4. If you also have negative 2 squared, again, the negative sign or symbol here, the negative sign or symbol here is inside the parenthesis. That means it is also squared. So that's why we get to have negative 2 times negative 2, and negative times negative is positive. That's why we get positive 4 as well. However, it's a different case this time if our negative is outside and the 2 is only inside. So as you can see here, the negative sign or symbol is outside. That means it is not affected to the square of what is inside the parenthesis. So that means since 2 is the only thing that needs to be multiplied twice, so we have it this way. Negative should be outside, and because it's base here, and then here would be the 2 times 2. So of course 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times negative is negative 4. So that's why this one here is different. Now anyway, let's proceed to another example. We have here, let's have 5 plus negative 2 cubed times 3. So here it's 3. That means this one, the negative 2 is to be multiplied 3 times. So negative 2 cubed. Again, negative 2 is inside. So that means the negative sign is affected thrice. So you have negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. First, let's have the symbols. Negative times negative is positive. So let's also write this down. So again, this one here is this and this. And this one here is just copied. So, and we have here positive times negative is negative. So our answer would be negative. And going back to our base numbers, so we have 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. That's why your answer is negative 8. So this one here, the negative 2 cubed is negative 8. So let's rewrite it here. So 5 plus negative 8 times 3. So we have here the addition and multiplication. So let's have the multiplication, obviously, based on GEMDAS. So negative 8 times 3 is 24. Negative 24. And we also have 5 plus. Right. 5 plus negative 24. So based on this, again, the bigger number is negative. That's why our result would be negative. And again, the base numbers of the big minus the small. So we have 24 minus 5. So we get 19. So based on this, we just need to connect negative and the 19. So we get negative 19 as our answer. Now let's have another one. So this one here has a lot of stuff going on. So we have 6 and then 6 plus negative 2 squared divided by 2. So based on this one, the most or the number or operation that needs to be operated first would be this one here. Because again, after we get a result of this part, that's the time we get to add it by 6. So based on this, like what we had earlier, negative 2 is to be multiplied by itself twice because of the squared. So negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. So based on this, we get to have 6 plus 4, then divided by 2. Still, we are under the G of GEMDAS, so we cannot proceed with our division here. So let's operate 6 and 4 first. So 6 plus 4 is 10, and that's the time we can divide by 2. And 10 divided by 2 is positive 5. Next, let's have a bit longer. We have 8 minus 3 times 2 plus negative 4 squared. Here, there are, what do you call this, grouped operations. So first, we need to deal with this one first so that we can add it to 2. So negative 4 times itself twice, because base here is square. So we have negative times negative is positive. So yeah, it's positive. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So based on this one, we have 8 minus 3 times 2 plus 16. Since both numbers are in a grouped operation, so you could just either of the two or do it simultaneously. So 8 minus 3 is 5. And 2 plus 16 is 18. And then this is the last one, our final step. So 5 times 18 is 90, positive 90. And this is the answer. For our next example here, we have negative 5 squared minus 6 minus negative 2, and then divided by negative 2. Now base here, why did we add braces here? Since the usual thing would just be the parentheses and brackets. However, since there are a lot of groupings involved, that's why we get to use braces as an extra symbol or symbols. Now, there are a lot of groupings inside the braces, but the part or area in which we are going to operate first would be this one. I'm not sure if this is the correct term, but it seems like the inside of something inside. This is the, for short, the most inside stuff of the operation, perhaps. So based on this, we could write it this way. So we have negative 5 squared minus 6, and negative times negative 2 is positive 2, and then just copy negative 2. After which, we could have here the negative 5 squared, and this one has the same, what do you call this? Has the same power, or what's the term? Has the same right to do their own thing. So we could have this one, negative 5 squared. Again, negative here is also squared because it is inside the parenthesis. So negative times negative is positive, and 5 squared is 5 times 5. That's why we get 25. Another thing, minus, we have here 6 plus 2 is 8. So we get to have minus 8. And then divided by negative 2. Now 25 minus 8 is 17. And divided by negative 2. So just like with how we do with division and multiplication, so a positive number here divided by a negative number, so the result would be negative. So 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. That's why we get negative 8.5 as the answer. Last example for today, we have here 3 plus 2 squared minus negative 4 times 3 divided by negative 2. So based on this one, the most inside operation here would be 3 plus 2 first before squaring and doing the other operation. So based on this one, we have 3 plus 2, which is 5 squared minus negative 4 times 3 divided by negative 2. Now, we could do things already with negative 5 and negative 4 times 3 simultaneously. Either of the two that you're going to operate first. So we have 5 squared, so 5 times 5 is 25, minus negative 4 times 3 is negative 12, divided by negative 2. As you can see here, negative times negative would be positive. So on this one, we get to have 25 plus 12 divided by negative 2. And 25 plus 12 is 37 divided by negative 2. That's why we get a negative result, because we have here a positive divided by a negative. And anyway, let's go back to the base numbers. 37 divided by 2 is 18.5. That's why our result here is negative 18.5. And that's it for today's discussion.